In the next few minutes, we will visit 5 castles. What was it like to live behind these walls, and why do they still matter? It is easy to imagine a castle as a place of war, siege towers, boiling oil, banners on the wind, and castles were those things. But for most of their lives, most castles were something quieter. A castle was a village wearing armor. Inside its walls lived far more than a lord and his family. There were cooks and stable hands, blacksmiths, brewers, chaplains, weavers, and the soldiers who guarded the gate. A great castle could house hundreds of people, a small, self-sufficient town ringed in stone. The Great Hall was the heart of it all. Here the household ate, heard news, settled disputes, and kept warm through the long northern winters. The hearth fire burned all day. The Lord's table was also the community's table. Servants ate alongside their masters, though not beside them, and the room's warmth belonged to everyone. The kitchens never truly rested. Bread was baked daily. Ale, safer to drink than river water, was brewed in vast quantities. Livestock grazed in the outer courtyard, and the stores beneath the floors held enough grain and salted meat to carry the whole household through a siege or a failed harvest. A castle was not an island. It stood for something. It protected the farms that surrounded it, the fishing boats that worked the nearby water, the road that carried merchants and pilgrims. In times of danger, the local people did not flee to the hills, they came inside. The castle was the community's shelter, its courthouse, its marketplace, and its church, all within one ring of stone. When you stand in a ruined castle today, you are not standing in a battlefield. You are standing in what was, for centuries, someone's entire world. Kilchurn Castle. Kilchurn Castle rises from the head of Loch Awe, half in the water, half in the clouds. It was built in the mid-15th century by Sir Colin Campbell of Glenorchy, the founder of a family that would grow to hold enormous power in the Western Highlands. He chose the spot with care. Loch Awe was a highway, the great waterway of Argyll, and a stronghold here could watch every boat that passed and tax every traveller. At first, Kilchurn was modest, a simple tower house. Over the next 2 centuries it grew, a curtain wall, a barrack block, a hall and a chambers fit for a powerful clan. By the 17th century, it could house a garrison of 200 men. And yet, for all its strength, Kilchurn is remembered less for battles than for silence. It was never taken in a great siege, its walls never fell to an enemy, and if the old stories are true, a single strike of lightning in 1760 which is said to have ended its life as a home and begun its life as a ruin. Its real story is written in what is gone. There is no longer a roof to keep out the rain, no fire in the Great Hall, but the shape of the life that happened here remains. The windows where a laird's wife once looked out over the loch, the stair where servants carried water, the gate that opened to a road that is now little more than grass. Stand here at dusk, when the water is flat and grey, and Kilchurn does not feel abandoned, feels as though it is merely waiting. Caerlaverock Castle. Caerlaverock is not like the others. It is the only triangular castle in Britain, and from above it, it looks like a vast shield set down on the flat, marshy ground of the Solway coast. 3 great walls, a tower at each corner, and a wide moat reflecting the sky. It was built in the late 13th century by the Maxwell family, and its colour is its first wonder. The stone is a deep, soft red, Dumfries sandstone, and when the light is low, it glows as if the walls were still warm. Caerlaverock's history is the history of being too close to a border. In 1300, King Edward I of England marched an army north and laid siege to it, an enormous force and siege engines that are recorded in a contemporary poem, one of the earliest detailed accounts of a siege in British history. The garrison held out for a remarkable time, but in the end, facing a king with an army and nothing to lose, the small castle surrendered. It is said that the entire defending force that emerged was fewer than 70 men. It would suffer again in the religious wars of the 17th century, when the Covenanters brought it down and left its southern wall shattered, a wound you can still see today. But Caerlaverock's significance runs deeper than war. Its name is said to mean the lark's nest, and there is something apt in that. A fragile, beautiful thing built on open ground, singing against the wind. It guarded the western approach to Scotland for 400 years. It protected the farms and fishing villages of the Solway, and it watched over a coast that was, for centuries, one of the most contested strips of land in the nation. Today the marsh birds nest where soldiers once stood, and the moat holds the sky instead of the enemy. The Red Stone has not been defeated, it has simply been handed back to the quiet. If Kilchurn floats and Caerlaverock glows, Dunottar defies. It is built on a fist of rock that juts into the North Sea. Cut off from the mainland, aside from a narrow neck of land, the only way in was a single, steep path, and the only thing that ever truly reached it, without an invitation, was the sea itself. This was the stronghold of the Earls Marischal, the Keiths, who were charged with guarding the crown jewels of Scotland. And it is here, in the 17th century, that Dunottar earned its place in the national story. In 1651, Oliver Cromwell's army was advancing through Scotland, and the honours of Scotland, the crown, the sceptre, and the sword of state, were in danger. They were brought to Dunottar and held here, while Cromwell's forces laid siege to the rock. When it became clear the castle could not hold forever, the regalia was smuggled out under the noses of the besiegers, hidden, by one account, in sacks of wool, carried by a minister's wife through the English lines. The crown of Scotland was buried beneath the floor of a quiet church a few miles away, where it waited out the war in the dark. Dunottar holds a darker memory too. In 1685, more than 160 Covenanters, men and women, who refused to swear loyalty to the king, were imprisoned in a cramped vault beneath the castle, held here through a bitter summer in conditions of appalling cruelty. The vault is still known as the Whig's Vault, and you can stand in it today and feel the weight of it. William Wallace burned an earlier fortress here in 1297. Mary Queen of Scots once sheltered within these very walls. The history is so layered, so thick, that the stones themselves seem to remember. But it is the setting that stays with you, the ruin on its headland, the sea below, the wind that never quite stops. Dunottar does not need to tell you it was important. It simply stands there, and you know. Dunrobin Castle. Suddenly, you are not in Scotland at all, or so it seems. Dunrobin, on the coast of Sutherland, is the largest house in the Northern Highlands, and it looks as though it has been lifted from the Loire Valley in France and set down facing the North Sea. Its white stone, its forest of conical spires, its grand formal gardens falling in terraces toward the water. It is a castle of a different kind entirely. It has been the seat of the Earls and Dukes of Sutherland since the early 14th century, though much of what stands today was remodeled in the 19th century by Sir Charles Barry, the very same architect who designed the Houses of Parliament in London. The result is a building of nearly 200 rooms, a great chateau at the top of Britain. Dunrobin is not a ruin, it is a living house. And that is precisely what makes it important. Here you can see intact the world that the other castles only gesture toward. The great drawing rooms, the library, the long corridors, the gardens clipped and ordered. You can stand in the kind of room where a clan chief once received his people, and understand that a castle's daily life was not all siege and smoke, but also ceremony, administration, hospitality, and power. Dunrobin carries a difficult history too. The Sutherland estate was at the centre of the Highland clearances, the forced displacement of thousands of tenant families in the 18th and 19th centuries. The elegance of this house was built in part on the emptying of the glens around it. To visit Dunrobin is to confront both things at once. Great beauty and a great cost. It is a castle that does not let you look away from what it represents. Stirling Castle. There is an old saying in Scotland, "He who holds Stirling holds the nation," and throughout the millennia this has been true. Stirling Castle sits on a great plug of volcanic rock, guarding the narrowest crossing of the River Forth, the gateway between the highlands and the lowlands. For centuries, every army, every king, and every idea that moved through north and south had to pass beneath these walls. To control Stirling was to control the spine of Scotland. It was a royal residence and one of the finest in the land. James IV built a great hall here at the start of the 16th century. one of the largest medieval halls in Scotland, its hammer beam roof soaring overhead, built for banquets and parliaments and the grand theatre of royal power. His son, James V, added the royal palace, a Renaissance jewel of carved stone, where Mary Queen of Scots was crowned in 1543, an infant wrapped in ceremony. The palace was once adorned with the Stirling heads, carved oak medallions, brightly painted, showing kings and queens and figures of myth, and the walls hung with a magnificent set of unicorn tapestries, restored and rehung in recent years, glowing with colour. Beyond the walls, the history is written into the landscape. At the foot of the rock, the Battle of Stirling Bridge was won by William Wallace in 1297. A few miles away at Bannockburn, Robert the Bruce broke an English army in 1314. Stirling Castle did not witness those battles from a distance. It was the prize they were fought over. Stand on the esplanade and look out over the Forth Valley. You are standing where the story of Scotland turned again and again. This was not a refuge, it was the hinge of a kingdom. 5 castles, a tower on a loch, a shield on a marsh, a fist in the sea, a chateau on a cliff, and a kingdom on a rock. They were built to be different things: homes, fortresses, seats of power, prisons, and symbols. But they share one truth, and it is the truth worth carrying away. A castle is not really a building of war. It is a building of continuity, a promise made in stone, that the people inside it and the people sheltered beneath it would still be there when the danger passed. The wars ended, the lords are gone, the fires have gone out, but the stones remain, and they are still keeping their promise. They are still here.